Good afternoon, America. We are here with...
For anonymity's sake, I'm just going to refer to myself as Mr. S.
All right, for sure. I'll try to not refer to you by your government name. All right. So I understand that you wanted to come on the podcast to tell us something.
I did, actually. I know I gave you a hard time, and I've actually never done anything like this. Just kind of thought it was, lack of a better word, just weird, different, something out of my comfort zone. But given recent events, I am now in a new perspective and in a new light, and just having an overall better headspace and just open to enjoying everything that life has to offer, including Caesar's podcast.
I'm with Caesar. Well, I'm very glad that you were able to become a little bit more open-minded to this, and I hope that I can provide you with a safe space to give us your story, because apparently it's very good.
Yes. So, for listeners, I would please have a seat. This is a tale about heartbreak, betrayal, self-discovery, and self-love. A little bit of background on myself. I spent the past 5 years up until this last September in the military. It was a big decision. I felt like I was almost running away from my problems, but the deciding factor for me just joining the military would be to make my family proud. I'm also the oldest of 5. I'm also the oldest grandkid. So a lot of pressure, whether it be directly, indirectly, stated or unsaid, otherwise, was put on me since birth to be a good role model to my siblings, to my cousins, and just overall values that the family has as far as being a man goes. So when I made the decision to go, I was at a pretty low point, to where I felt I was getting nowhere in life. I had quit community college. I was working as a pizza delivery boy. I was doing nothing but smoking weed and drinking with my friends, and just letting time pass by and not getting anywhere in life. And at one point I had enough, and a very pivotal moment was actually the first day I talked to a recruiter. It was also the same night that I got into a severe car accident with my 2 friends, and to where I wrapped my car around a pole. I put one of my friends in the ICU for about 5 days before he regained consciousness, and my other one just had to spend overnight. He kind of broke his toe, but I was able to leave the site essentially unscathed. I had a few cuts. I was bleeding a little bit, but I was able to walk away essentially fine. But that was one of the deciding factors on. I took it as a sign, as me being able to walk away from that was also a sign for me to continue on with pursuing the military and just being, a better version of myself. Right. So fast forward, I would say 2 years. I would say 2 years. Fast forward 2 years, I come home for a holiday, and a friend of mine, we were at an Airbnb. It was a bunch of us had put in for this Airbnb. We were going to enjoy the 4th of July weekend. And a buddy of mine said, hey, I'm going to invite some girls that I know. Essentially just be prepared, right? We're all military guys. We've been surrounded by guys. We've probably been around more naked guys than naked women. So hearing someone say, hey, I'm bringing girls, it was kind of a big deal, right? And this is the first time that I met who would be my girlfriend and who would turn into my ex, right? Met her. I really enjoyed her. For the story's sake, we're going to call her Miss J, all right? I met her. She seemed a little bit weird. She was this, beautiful, green-eyed, just beautiful girl that, with socks that actually to this day I can still picture, and I still remember the very first time that we met, because I really liked her socks, and her socks were UFOs abducting cows, and I still remember those socks to this day, right? Unbeknownst to me that she would eventually be my girlfriend. So after that night, I had also invited her to my birthday, which was, it was going to be my 21st. And I invited her over, to my birthday party, cause it was going to be a week after that 4th of July, right? She came and we talked the whole night. The whole night we played cards, we played music, we told stories while, my friends, my family, they either passed out or they left. And, we essentially bonded. However, it was me having to go back to the military and then eventually moving all the way to the East Coast. That kind of, I didn't pursue her immediately. It took me a couple months. But fast forward another, I would say about 6 months or so, I have now been away from home the longest I've ever been. 6 months. I haven't been home. I had missed Christmas. I had missed New Year's that year. It's now around June, July timeframe. And I finally had the opportunity to go home, and it would have been 9 months. 9 months since I've been home. So I'm here hitting up, people, trying to make plans, trying to make the most of my time. And I think just unknowingly, I had sent her a snap, just jokingly, whatever it was, but not thinking anything would come of it. But she hit me back, and we started talking and getting to know each other more, and we eventually made plans to hang out and see each other, and that's what we did. We hung out. She definitely made that first time back after 9 months home very special. And I was falling for her. So at the end of those 9 months, or I'm sorry, at the end of, it was about 2 weeks that we were there. We had spent at least, half the time together, right? I spent more time with her than I spent with my family. I spent, almost every waking moment trying to text her, talk to her, just trying to find any excuse to hang out with her. And, we hit it off. It was great. Young love. She was 18 at the time. Um, I had, just recently turned 21. No, I'm sorry. Just recently turned 22 now. Uh, so, so she was 18 when we met, and now, yeah, 18, 22. So there's about a 4 year age gap right there. So when I left, it was the last day, right? I was just hopelessly romantic and thinking, oh, she's just being nice. She just wants to, have an excuse to go out, because at the time she had no license and no car. She was essentially just stuck at home unless someone picked her up, right? So that was me. I was the one that would go pick her up. We went to a drive-in movie theater. We went to the beach. We went to a view. We went out to eat. We went to get ice cream. Just every single cute thing imaginable we were pursuing and doing. And I took that all as she's just being nice. But a leap of faith, what I thought was a leap of faith, not picking up on any of the signs, any of the signals that she was putting, on me. It was until the last day before I flew back to the East Coast, where I said, hey, I really like you. And, I think I would like to continue seeing you in maybe a more romantic manner. And that's when she hit me with it's about fucking time, right? You weren't picking up any of my signals. I thought you didn't like me. And so I was just super embarrassed to think that, I wasted all this time thinking she was just being nice, where I could have been, putting the moves on her. But, everything happens for a reason. And it was just a beautiful start to our story. We eventually made it official about 3 months later when I saw her again in December. I had came home for the holidays finally, and we spent time together. We embraced each other fully, and just both of us head over heels for each other. And this continued. It was me spending a lot more time on the East Coast. The relationship was, a lot of FaceTime, a lot of late night calls, especially with the 3-hour difference that we were facing in time for time zones. It was always, I miss you. It was always, I can't wait to see you. It was always, I wish you were here. And early on in the relationship, it didn't affect too much, because that's just how we started and that's all we knew. However, it was taking a unknown toll on myself and my self-worth, and me seeing her as the most amazing person that could have ever, been a part of my life, and wanting to do right by her. However, always feeling like I wasn't doing enough, or I wasn't enough. Not because of anything she told me, not because of, anything she said or did, right? She tried her best to assure me that I could do no wrong, and I felt unworthy of her. I felt unworthy of her love, and it took a couple months of me looking at myself and realizing that I can't keep putting her through this. At this point, we were about 1.5 years in, and I started having these doubts. I started having these self-doubts. I started hating myself. I started Um, some days were better than others. However, the underlying mood or underlying feeling was I can't be there for her physically as much as I want to. Like, I signed my life away for 5 years, and I still had another another year and a half to go. So when I went home again after not seeing her, she even made efforts to see me on the East Coast, and she really tried to be there, and I know she loved me, and I know she tried her hardest with what she had, and I tried to be there for her. I tried to heal her, because I thought I was in a place to do that, emotionally, right? Hurt people, and healed people heal people. I thought that was the way, and I thought I was emotionally developed enough to help her heal from her past traumas. However, it wasn't enough, and I always felt that she deserved better than me, and I had no idea how to cope with that besides just ending the relationship, because I felt that she deserved better and I could not give her better, at least not for the time. And I still had a whole year left in the military. On top of that, I was slated to go to Japan for the majority of that last year. And if a 3-hour difference was already making me feel this way, imagine a 16-hour difference, right? Being an entire day, apart, halfway across the world, right? Trying to manage work, especially with the amount of responsibility that they were putting on me, and trying to, still feel like I was giving her the effort that she deserved. So I made the choice to break up with her, and it was just before our 2-year anniversary, and I still remember it was almost 2 hours of just tears and crying, and it was the worst thing that I possibly could have done to her, but I did it from a place that I thought I was doing what was best for her. She did not see it that way, and I should have voiced it better. The excuse that I used was, I'm not in love with you anymore. Not that I don't love you, but I just wasn't in love with you. And, she did not take it. This was, a blindsided hit by a truck, completely out of the blue. She thought everything was fine. Whereas, I was trying to build up the courage to do this, and I hated the timing of it. I hated everything about it. She later on told me that she felt that I chose going to Japan over her, because a month later, after I had gone back to the East Coast and had broken up with her, she sends me a picture of a positive pregnancy test. And in my mind, she was very meticulous and very on top of her birth control. So I had no doubt, right? I had so much doubt that this was, happening, right? I was, usually careful. However, the last time we were together, you know, I did, you know, I didn't pull out and I wasn't careful. But I thought that, you know, her being, you know, on top of her birth control, that it would have been fine. It was okay. So when I saw that, I immediately thought, holy shit, what the fuck happened? Oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't swear on here, but...
Sorry, it's all good.
So I was just in shock, and I couldn't believe what was happening. And, you know, we were already broken up for a month now, and so when we started talking about it, she asked what I wanted to do. And I told her, I was like, if you're asking me honestly, I don't feel ready. If you're asking me honestly, I don't think you're ready, right? She had just turned 20. I was 24. She had just turned 20, and, you know, she was still living at home. She had stopped going to school. And I didn't think that having a child would be good for either of us. One, because I still had a year left in the military, and two, you know, I didn't want a child to stop her from pursuing what she wanted to pursue, right? I didn't want that extra stress on her. I already knew how much stress she puts on herself, and I didn't think that a child was going to be the best thing for her, you know, on top of me not feeling like I was ready financially, emotionally, maturely to be a father. And I told her all this, and she was like, okay, we'll go with what you want. And I told her no. I was like, the choice is yours. I was like, I will do whatever I have to if you want to keep her, or if you want to keep the child. You know, I was, at least from what I remember, I don't know if she remembers it the same way, but I remember being very adamant about me doing whatever it was going to take, right? I told her I was going to re-enlist because the benefits of the military were already there for me, and I knew that staying in the military would have made it a whole lot easier to have a child than having to take care of a child when I got out of the military, right? I had the secure paycheck. I had the medical benefits. I would have married her. I would have, you know, I would have essentially, I would have provided, because that's just how I was raised. And, you know, but I was also terrified, and she asked me to be honest, and I told her honestly. I was like, I don't think I'm ready. And she was like, okay. I was like, what do you want to do? She was like, I think I want to keep it. And my heart sunk, and I got scared, and I told her, well, think about this first, all right? Think about it. And she was like, okay, fine, we'll be ready. So I was in the East Coast trying to do research. She was doing her part. She said, okay, well, it says, you know, you can have the abortion like up until the first trimester, no issues, right? It's the highest success rate for it. I was like, okay, let's set a date. We set a date in November, so about a month and a half after that. And I told her, I was like, okay, I'll fly out. So I flew out for the weekend. I didn't tell anyone. I just, you know, packed a bag, and I got my flight. I got the rental car. I got the hotel that we were going to stay in. And I was with her for that weekend, because I can only imagine the emotional damage, the emotional trauma that, you know, going through that would have caused. And in my mind, I had no reason to doubt that she wouldn't go through with it. I thought she had no reason to lie about this. However, about a month later, she tells me that, hey, I still haven't gotten my period, and my heart sunk all over again. She also, she didn't let me see any receipts from the first time. She didn't. I essentially just picked her up from outside because of the timing of my flight. She said that she had just finished and I had just landed, or I had just got in the rental car. So the timing of it was, I didn't go inside. I didn't ask anyone. And like I said, I had no reasons to doubt that she would lie to me about this. But she hits me with the, hey, I still haven't gotten my period. I'm trying to do this research about, like, how long do you have to wait? What happens after? Like, how long do you have to wait for the period to come back? Or is it irregular? Like, whatever. I said, okay, nothing online is helpful. Like, can you call Planned Parenthood, see if, see what's up? Like, is everything okay? Like, did it work? Did it happen? Whatever. And she was like, what did she say? I think we settled on just taking another pregnancy test, and she came out positive again.
Were you there for it?
No. However, I was going to be home for the holidays again. So we made another appointment, and I drove her this time. I drove her, and I said, hey, I want to go up there with you. I want to be there with you. And she became super defensive and just saying, no, don't go up there. I don't want you up there. She was like, if you try going up there, I'm not going to go. She was like, just wait in the car. She was like, just wait in the car for an hour. And I was like, why don't you want me to go? I was like, I'll pay for it this time. Like, I'll take care of everything. Like, you just, let me go with you. I want to be with you. And she was very adamant. She was, almost yelling at me not to go. She was saying, just don't go up there with me. And I was like, okay, fine. If that's what it's going to take for you to do this, then okay, I'll meet you where you're telling me to go. And so I waited and, she came back outside and she had a look on her face that, I still had no doubt that she went through it. She went through with it. And I hated myself all over again, thinking that, I felt like I forced it upon her, and I felt like she didn't want this, even though what she said was it made sense not to. And I hated myself for a long time after that. So after the holidays, I went back to the East Coast because I was going to leave for Japan about 2 weeks after New Year's. I dropped her off home, and that was pretty much it. I told her, I was like, I'm so sorry for everything. And if you need anything, just, reach out. I'll try to be there the best that I can. But keep in mind, I'm going to Japan now, right? And she was like, okay. So she texted me a lot more. And in my mind, it wasn't healthy, especially after what we went through, for me to text her normally. So I told her, I was like, hey, I don't think it's right for me to continue talking to you like this. I was like, if you actually need something from me, don't hesitate to ask and reach out. But other than that, I lost the right, I lost the privilege of knowing what's going on in your life. I lost the privilege of you talking to me the way that you do. So I essentially initiated the no contact. And it took her a while. It took her about, a month to finally stop messaging me. I think the last time she sent me a message was in February of this year, wishing my dad, a happy birthday. And that was essentially the last message that she sent me. Up until, I go about my business. I try to make the most of Japan, all the while, still looking at our pictures, all the while missing her, all the while continuing to think about her. And I told myself that I wasn't going to pursue a relationship until after I got out of the military. And someone came along. We'll call her Miss A. All right, we'll call her Miss A.
I'm gonna say that's the name of my ex, Miss B.
All right, Miss B. We'll call her Miss B, right? She had recently broken up with her fiance, right? She was engaged the December before, and she had also just joined my unit. I had not spoken to her, more than like 2 words, maybe in the hallway. But she had, I guess, found me on, I think it was, what was the first thing she hit me up on? I think it was like Facebook, I think. She sent me a friend request. I don't use Facebook. I use it for Facebook Marketplace. That's pretty much it. But I thought that was weird. I was like, I've never spoken to this person. I was like, why am I getting a friend request, right? I hit her. I sent her a message. I was like, hey, what's up? I was like, this is kind of weird. And she was like, oh, I'm new to the unit, and you seem like you're a good guy, at least from what I can tell. She's like, I would like to, be friends. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't see no harm in that. And then about a month into it, she starts, being a little bit more flirtatious and opened up about, wanting to see me that way and whatnot. And I told her very early on that, hey, I'm not pursuing any relationship. I was like, and I know you just got out of something serious. I was like, but she assured me that she was mature enough, because she's also 2 years older than I was, or am. And, I felt that she was more mature, or, able to cope with her feelings as an adult. And boy, was I mistaken. About 2 months into it, I tried to cut things off completely, because she kept asking for more and more emotionally, and just she wanted a relationship, and I had to keep telling her that's not what I want. I was like, if you just want to use each other as essentially rebounds, I'm okay with that, but don't expect anything else. And she started crying because I wanted to end it right then and there. I was like, you're asking for too much. I was like, I can't give you what you're looking for, and I think we're just better off as friends. I was like, it might make the workplace messy, and I don't want that, and she was saying how, no, you're such a good guy, like, I want to keep having a good time with you, this and that. She's like, I'm sorry for asking for so much. I'll stop, this and that. But the way that she was crying and essentially begging me to continue this, I was having flashbacks of when I broke up with my ex, and I fell into essentially grief again. and I didn't want to hurt another person that way. So I told her, fine, we can continue this until I get out, but after that, I'm not gonna, I can't have contact with you, essentially, right? I was like, I'm gonna move back to the West Coast, and you're gonna keep pursuing your military career, and we're gonna just call it that, right? It was fun while it lasted, and maybe we'll be friends after this. And she agreed. However, as the weeks and months went on, she would have outbursts of wanting more and more, to be treated more like a girlfriend as a relationship. And I had to remind her every single time. I was like, this is not what that is. And every single time she was like, okay, fine, you're right, I'm sorry. And she was good to me. She definitely tried to take care of me. And I would feel bad about how things ended if certain events didn't happen. However, fast forward now to September, where I'm now looking at my last 3 weeks of before I get out. So I'm doing my whole checkout process. I'm already back on the East Coast. So I got really drunk the night that we got back, and it was accidentally. It was like I was not planning on drinking as much as I did, but we had gotten back late, and I was just trying to grab my stuff from my friend's house that I had stored it at. I was trying to move into my room. It was late. I was tired. I hadn't showered yet in like almost 36 hours. Just wearing the same clothes, and so I got really drunk, and she was staying over the night in my room because she didn't like her roommate. So I was like, okay, I understand the relationship that you have with her. I was like, it's fine, you can stay here. But I got really drunk that night, and all I remember is feeling the guilt and just venting to her about how shitty I felt about what I did to my ex, and how I felt like I was not worthy of love, and how I felt that I was a horrible person and she didn't deserve that. So Ms. B was trying to say, no, you're a good man, like it's fine, you made a mistake, like you're worthy, this and that. And I kept telling her no, and I passed out drunk, I threw up, it was a mess. She took care of me, she cleaned me up, and I appreciated it in the moment, and I appreciated her for the care that she gave me throughout the months. But it still didn't change the fact that every time I looked at her and every time I was with her, I still pictured my ex. Essentially everything that we did together, I wish I was still doing with Miss J, right? And I felt guilty about that too. But that emotional connection was never there with Miss B. So when it came time and I was leaving, it didn't hurt me, shaking hands, saying that last goodbye. It didn't bother me, right? Not as much as it did her. But I had told her everything about what I did to her. So she knew the whole story. She still thought that I was worth something, and something and someone that she would want, right? So when it came to having my road trip back, it was about 3 days into me driving from the East Coast all the way back to California, right? I see, and I'm sorry if I'm about to jump around because I'm trying to be very linear with the story, but now I'm remembering the details that I missed. So let me backtrack a little bit. I was in Japan, and it was about May of this year. It was either April or May. And I had seen a post from my ex showing that she was with someone new. And my first reaction was I smiled. I was so happy for her, and I was so happy to see her smile, even if it was with someone else, because, I felt that, she was finally with someone that can make her happy and, be there for her, in the ways that I couldn't. The jealousy did set in a little bit later, but my initial reaction was, I was happy for her. I was happy that she was happy. That's all I ever wanted for her was to be happy. And not too long after that initial post that I saw, I also saw that what looked like engagement photos. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that was pretty quick. But, I was like, I had my chance. I blew it. Can't really be upset. If she found the one, she found the one. However, I would also see posts throughout the time. It wasn't too many, but they hinted at a child, whether it be she took a picture of a stroller on discount, or she took a picture of a car seat that was on sale, and she would say something like, oh, where was this when I was looking for it? So when at the time, I still remember I had asked her about it, and I was like, what do you mean about this? And then she would just reply, what do you mean? I was like, what? I was like, is there something you need to tell me? And she was like, no, there's nothing. So I was like, okay. That obviously gave me severe anxiety, thinking about, possibly what was happening, and she wasn't being straight up. But I also felt that, she would have told me if that was the case.
What did you think she was trying to hide?
I thought at the time that she might have been just messing with me, not thinking that she hated me or anything, not thinking that, she was out looking for revenge. I thought, maybe she was just trying to play a joke playfully, whatever. So I didn't dig too deep into it. On top of that, I also saw that she was with someone new. So I was thinking, hey, maybe, even if she is pregnant now, it couldn't be mine, right? She can't be, right? On top of that, like the pictures that I was seeing about her, she wasn't showing, and I was trying to do the timeline, right? I was like, okay, it's been about 6 months. I was like, she's not showing anything. So I had no reason to think that she was pregnant, right? No reason, right? All signs pointed that she wasn't. Going back to my road trip, right, in September, I had seen a post about 2 a.m. 2 a.m, I got a notification saying that she posted something on Snapchat. I was like, okay, let's take a look at this. Like, I haven't seen anything that she posted because I feel like she had blocked me for a few months there in the middle of the year, which was fine, right? Like I said, I had lost the privilege of knowing what was going on in her life, right? And at the time, I thought, okay, maybe she just doesn't want me seeing the stuff that she posts with, her new man. And so I was like, okay, that's fair. But when I got that notification, just randomly, I was like, oh, it's been a while. Let me see what she's up to. And that post shattered my reality. It shattered my world. It was a post of a little baby girl on one of those blankets that has the numbers 1 through 12, and you essentially put something around the number for the however many months they are. And this little baby girl had circled the number 3. So this little baby girl had just turned 3 months old. And it took me all of half a second to do the math. And my heart sunk. And I couldn't stop staring at the photo, and I didn't know what to do. I was in Texas at the time, halfway through the country. I still had halfway to go. Luckily, I had one of my close cousins with me to do the road trip, right? Because we had agreed. Luckily, he had, not luckily, but at the time he was unemployed, so there wasn't any issues with him trying to take some time off or anything. So it lined up to where I had someone to be with me on the road trip back. Remembering now that while I was with my ex, we had made a promise to each other that when I got out, we would do this road trip, regardless of where we were at. But I didn't fulfill that promise because I thought, she was happy with someone else, and I wasn't going to get in the middle of that. I wasn't going to go and, stop or get in the way of any of the healing that she's done on her own. I was like, that's not my place. That's not right. I was like, as much as I wanted to, I couldn't do that. So luckily I had my cousin with me, and this was 2 a.m, so he was already asleep. And so I shot out of bed, and I went and I banged on the door for the room that he was in. And I was like, I need you to wake up right now and tell me what you see, right? And he was like, what is that? I was like, what do you see right here on my phone? And he was like, oh, that's it's a baby. I was like, yeah. And I was like, he asked, who posted that? I was like, my ex. And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, no way. And, he immediately woke up, and he's like, what the heck? And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I'm here freaking out. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I did the only thing that I thought, to do. And I called her. I called her once. She didn't answer. I called her again. She was, I think it was about 11 o'clock at night for her. Or closer to midnight. And so we talked for about half a second. And I was like, you need to explain, you need to be honest with me right now. I was like, whose baby is that? And she essentially said, I can't talk about this right now. I just got off of work. I need to get home. And I was like, we need to talk about this. And she was like, okay, we'll talk tomorrow. And I was like, okay, fine. She essentially was saying, hey, I can't talk right now. I can't talk right now. And I was like, okay, fine. I waited almost a whole 24 hours before she called me again. No, actually, she didn't call me. I called her because I was getting worried. It was getting late, and I was out with friends that I was visiting in Texas, and I had to tell them. I was like, hey, I need to take this phone call. And so I walked away from the bar that we were at, and I had taking this phone call, and I I had spent the whole day thinking about it already. I was like, there's no way. I was like, she had to have lied. She had to have lied.
You take that?
It says from Indiana. Let me just figure out who this is real quick.
All right, we're back.
All right, so continuing on with the phone call that I had to take while I was in Texas, I did not feel the need to ask her if the child was mine because the timeline was there, the history of what had happened was there. So I essentially had no doubt in my mind that this child was mine, right? Everything, everything lined up, everything seemed logical, everything, timeline, everything about it. Like the baby even looked like me, I had no reason to doubt her. I had no reason to think that, anything other than, I was a father and, I didn't know about it. So when we talked, that second day after I found out, I asked her, I was like, I just have one question, I was like, what's her name? And, she told me her name. And she was like, oh, I named her after you. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what name? We had talked, I know we had mentioned it before, saying how I didn't want any of my kids to have my name because I've already had the same first name as my dad and my grandpa, so I didn't want that name anymore. I wanted it to be something different, right? But she told me that she named her essentially the female version of my name, and I was like, for a split second, I was like, oh, come on. I was a little disappointed. Because I know I told her that I didn't want that, right? But she said that she named the baby girl after her father and me, and she said that she named her after the two strongest guys that she knows. And from then on, I was like, oh my God, like you did so much for me. She in my head, she took this on all by herself. She's been doing it, she's been raising a child and doing who knows what else. Like she took it upon herself to let me attempt to enjoy, a different country. She took it upon herself to let me get out of the military because she knew how much I didn't like it. Like in my head, she showed me what I thought was unconditional and true love, right? She put my needs in front of hers, right? For almost an entire year. And I felt so shitty thinking that, I had given that up. I had no idea what she was willing to do for me, up until this point, and yeah, like I was still in love with her and I didn't reach out because I thought she was with someone else, but, and I probably still wouldn't have if I didn't find out about her, about the baby. And, so we talked and we texted and, I tried to get more information about the whole thing because, I felt like I missed almost a whole year of development and preparation. Like I felt, one, I was just thrown into it. I had no time to prepare. I had this plan about coming back and, finally getting rid of the military stress and, getting my life back together and reigniting freaking relationships with family and, coming back and being that good role model to my siblings, setting the right example and, helping out the family, doing all this stuff, that I've missed out on for the past 5 years. I was going to come back and just be the best version of myself that I could be, for the ones that I cared about. And that all changed because now, I was a father, and I wanted to pursue a family with my ex, and she was not having it. She saw me as the villain, right? She saw me as this guy didn't want a child, and he has no right to be a dad, and he has, she essentially told me, don't get too excited because I haven't even decided if you're going to meet her yet. And, in the moment, I was like, okay, that's fair. But, eventually I would like to talk about this more. And she was like, okay, we'll see. But, I got to go now. And I was like, okay. Over the phone call, she shed tears. I had no reason to doubt that she wasn't being genuine. So the day that I got back, or I would say the next day, because I got back pretty late on a Wednesday. This is already closer to later September. And I told her, I was like, hey, I'm back now. I was like, can we meet up and talk? And she was like, okay, fine, I'll see you. She's like, I have some time Saturday morning, right? I have to go to work, but, her work, what she does for work, essentially lets her have that time to where she's on the clock so she can slip away, essentially do what she wants and still get paid for it, right? She even takes advantage of it sometimes and goes home, right? So I was like, okay, fine. I was like, I'll take that. I was like, we'll meet up Saturday. So Thursday, the day after, I went to the bank and I withdrew, a substantial amount of what I had saved up. And then the following day, Friday, she surprises me and comes to my dad's house. Right, just out of the blue, I was like still trying to move in. Like I looked gross. My hair was a mess. I was all dusty because I was cleaning the room and moving in. And I was like, oh, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't anticipating you showing up like this. And she was like, I know. Which is why I did it, right? So she wanted to catch me off guard, and she did. And she was just as, at this time, right, she had gotten her license. She was driving the car that her grandma gave her, because the car that she bought herself, her brother ended up crashing it. So she's over here drinking some rinky-dink, Camry that has a big old dent in the passenger side, by the tire, by the wheel. But she did this cute thing where she put like plastic fake flowers all around the dent, because she couldn't afford to actually fix the car. I was like, oh, on top of that, she spray painted the hubcaps, and she sprayed painted the entire interior of the car with this like lavender spray paint. And it was just the most atrocious job imaginable. It didn't look like she used any sort of like painters or masking tape to like do fine lines. She just went at it, right? Anyway, I complimented her car. I said, it's good to see you. Like, essentially it's like, hey, we'll take things slow. But I really, I also don't want to get in the way. At this point in time, when I first saw her, I still thought that she was with someone else. And, she started tearing up, and I said, I'm sorry. Like, I was like, I don't know what you've been going through and, how you've been doing it, but, I'm here to help, and I want to help, and I want to be there. I was like, I'm not the same guy that I was a year ago, right? I'm better. I was like, I don't have the stress. I don't have, I don't have the limitations. I don't have any of that anymore. I was like, I'm better, and I want to show you that I'm better. And she essentially shot me down saying, no, I don't want, nor do I need anything from you. And I was a little bit taken aback by that. I was like, whoa. I was like, how are you? I was like, okay, fine. I was like, don't look at it as me helping you. Look at it as me providing for my daughter, right? I was like, let's look at it that way, right? So I gave her the first amount, right? It was several $1,000s. She started crying. She was like, no, I can't take that. I was like, I don't want that. And I was like, look, please take it. She was like, no. And, she had already telling me how she was having a hard time with rent, how she was in debt, how her credit score was so bad, because of everything that she had to go through. And so I was like, this is not even close to the amount of, me repaying you for everything, right? For you taking on this and you looking out for me, you putting my wants before your needs, right? I was like, I can't even begin to repay you, essentially, right, for everything that you've done for me. And, she still was hesitant. She kept pushing my hand away and not wanting to take it. So I grabbed her hand and I put the envelope in her hand. I was like, look here, take it. I was like, think of it as, me showing you that I am here willing to help the best way I can. And, if until you're ready for me to see her, I was like, I want the peace of mind knowing that, you're going to put this money to good use. And, it should help take care of, our daughter. Right. And that was all I was able to give her at the moment. Because I also have been raised and, been trained that you can't help anyone if you put yourself out, right? You can't put yourself in a position to, you can't let yourself fall into a hole, or essentially, how airlines, tell you, put your mask on before you help others. So I held on to a little bit just before I got the rest of the money that I was expecting from, moving myself and whatnot. But, when I did get that money, it was about 2 or 3 weeks later. I pulled it out, same thing, and I asked if we could meet up, and, she agreed. Until then, we were talking, everything seemed fine. I expressed how excited I was and this and that. And she was saying, still kind of keeping me at an arm's distance. But, everything that I found out, it was because I was just so hyper fixated on, finding out everything that I could about my daughter, right? Figuring out what the best course of action was to fix, and not necessarily fix, but I kept telling my ex that I know I can't fix what I did in the past, and I know I hurt you, but I'm back now and I want to pursue something better, right? I made that extremely clear. It was, almost a consistent topic or whatever it was, whenever we talked, I needed to reassure her. I was like, hey, I'm back now. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I was like, I'm here to stay. Like, you've only ever known me as the long distance boyfriend. Like, I'm here to stay, and I want to show you the different side of me. I want to show you the better side of me, right? I want to show you the man that I am now. This almost a whole 180 from who I was a year ago, right? Because back then I would have provided because I had to. Now I'm providing because I want to, right? So she still kept me at arm's distance, and I probably should have kept my distance as well. But I pursued her. I made it very evident and very apparent that I wanted to rekindle a relationship, and and that I was ready to be, that I wanted a family, and I would have done whatever it took to have that life with her, right, and her daughter. I was willing to do anything it took, right? So that included, emptying out my bank account for her. That included me, me looking for work immediately, not really having time to myself or to transition or, to spend time with family. I had to turn down, my grandma was so excited. She kept saying, let's go to Mexico together. Let's go to Mexico together. And I was like, I can't. I need to work. And she didn't understand why, right? Because I didn't tell her the reasons. I told a very select few of my family, right? My cousin knew. He was the first one. I called my sister the same night. And I told her. But that was pretty much it. I hadn't told anyone else the circumstances of it, except for Miss B. Dun dun dun. She comes back right into the story. The last thing I had told her was when I found out. I had told her everything, and I had told her how I was going to try to fix things with my ex, and I was going to pursue that, right? And she did not take it well. She was super upset, in a sense that she feels like she wasn't going to be able to be with me, and even though she wanted to, and I had to apologize, saying, hey, I'm sorry I got your hopes up, if that, but I was like, this is what I want, and I want to leave things how we left it, on good terms, right? And she was like, okay, fine. However, her knowing the full story about me taking my ex to Planned Parenthood twice, and me knowing that she's with someone new, my ex is with like her new man, she was sensing something was either fishy, or maybe it was the jealousy, or whatever it was that compelled her, right? I at the moment wanted to put it as she was trying to look out for me, but she took it upon herself to message some of my family members off of Instagram. She messaged one of my aunts, she messaged my uncle, and she messaged my dad. I didn't know this until my aunt had, a week after I had gotten back, had texted me. She was like, hey, I know you're back, and I know we saw each other on Sunday, but can we go to dinner, just the two of us? And, me and my aunt, we were pretty close. Like, I know she, really enjoys my company, and she's easier to talk to. She's a little bit younger. She's still younger than my parents. And just her whole personality was like, oh, you know what, I would actually enjoy that, right? Or not necessarily enjoy it, but I still wanted to make time for family, right? To have that relationship with my family. And so we went out to dinner, and she's asking, how do you feel, this and that, like, how do you feel being back, and I was giving her the answers that I thought were going to be sufficient, saying, I like being back, I want to be here, be a good role model to my siblings, set them straight, and be a good brother, be a good son, be a good role model. And she was like, okay, let me ask you this now. How's your, is there anyone that you're like interested in, like you're trying to go back to? I was like, no, not really. I was like, I'm just gonna, look out for myself and this and that. She was like, oh, you sure? I was like, yeah. She was like, you're not having any kind of like girl trouble or anything? I was like, no. I was like, what? I was like, why? I was like, no, why do you ask? And she was like, well, a certain someone had sent me a message on Instagram and told me about, a possible baby. And my heart sunk, and I didn't know what to do. I was just in shock. I didn't know how to get out of the conversation, so I just told her the truth. And, I had told her everything. I was like, and then eventually it was like, who could have told her this, right? Who because everyone that I told, I swore to secrecy. And I said, don't tell anyone. I will be the one to tell my family, when I'm ready. And I was kind of waiting till I got to meet the baby first before I can, tell my family, right? Especially my parents. So when my aunt knew, I was in shock. I was like, when did you, like, who told you? And she was like, I don't know. Like, someone says that that they want to look out for you and to watch you and, be careful. And I was like, who was it? I was like, was it my sister? I was like, was it my cousin? And she was like, no. She said that she was just a friend. And I was like, don't tell me. I was like, is her name Miss B? And she was like, yeah, I think that's what the what the message said. And I was like, this Miss B, right? So I was like, what did the message say, right? And she read me the message, and I was like, crap. Okay, who else did she tell? And she said that, she reached out to your uncle and she reached out to your dad. I was like, crap, right? Because I wasn't prepared to have this conversation so early on, right? I thought I had more time. So I was like, okay. And she was trying to reassure me. I was like, look, your dad doesn't go on Instagram. Like, he's not going to check. Like, he's not going to have anything right there, right? So don't worry about him. I was like, but just know that, he might stumble across it if he ever does open up his Instagram. I was like, yeah, you're right. And she was like, eventually you have to tell your parents, right? Regardless of whether you've met her or not, like they need to know, right? They need to know what's going on with you. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So, however, my dad was going to go to Mexico the following week for about 4 days, right? He was going to go and just spend time. He was going to go with one of his friends, and they were both going to go, freaking just drink and have a good time, right? I was like, cool, he's going on a vacation. So I decided to tell my mom first, right? So I decided to tell my mom. I said, hey, Mom, can we go out to dinner, just the two of us? And she was like, yeah, of course, I would love that. And I was telling my ex this, right? I was like, hey, it's come to the time to where I need to tell my parents, right? Because, before they hear it from some random Instagram account, that I need to be the one to tell them, right? And she was like, okay, cool, nice, sweet, right? And my ex was like, you know what? Here, I want to give your mom something. And she printed me out these little kind of like photo booth strip type photos almost. But they also said, what did they say? Something about congratulations, grandma, or along those lines, right? And they were specifically for my mom. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. She'll love this, right? I'm telling my ex this. I was like, okay, how else am I going to tell my mom? I was like, let me do this. I'm going to get her a card, right? So I got my mom a card. I'm pretty sure it was a birthday card, right? The card from the front says, hey, Mom, you make things happen, right? And when you open up the card, it says, like me, for instance, happy birthday, right? So it's from a child to their mother saying, hey, you made me. I write in the card after this, and I made you a grandma, right? And I put the pictures in the card, and, I recorded my mom's reaction because, I wanted to have that, right? This is her firstborn telling her that she's going to be a grandma, right? This is one of the biggest milestones in any mother's career or any mother's, life, to hear that she's going to be a grandma now. And I still had no doubt in my mind that my ex was being genuine. I thought, oh, she wants to do something nice for my mom. I was like, this is really good. This is progress, right? She still hasn't let me meet the baby, but, she's giving me these pictures so I can give to my mom. And, she's helping me tell my family. I was like, cool, sweet. So yeah, we had that night, we had that talk. I told my mom everything, everything. I didn't hold anything back from my mom. Everything from like my self-doubt to taking her to Planned Parenthood because I felt like I wasn't ready, like everything, right? I didn't hold anything back from my mom because I wanted her to know the whole story, right? because obviously this is going to come to a shock. Like, this baby's already 3 months old and she's just not learning about it. Right. So I wanted to answer all of her questions. And so I did. And my mom understood. She was like, she's hurt. My ex is hurt. That's why she hasn't seen her, or she hasn't let me see her, and this and that. And I was like, okay, fine. And then a week later, when my dad got back, I told him, same sort of, setup, except, I told him at home because, I waited a day after he got back from Mexico, and I was like, hey, Dad, can I talk to you for a sec? And he was like, yeah, of course. And, I was really struggling for a way to open up this conversation with my dad because, I live with him. And, and me and him haven't always had the best relationship, but, it was so much better now. And I felt that we could have this father-son, this man-to-man talk, right? And so I told him, I was like, look, I have some news for you. I was like, I'm not asking you for anything. I want you to hear me out, and I want to tell you something. And he was like, okay, cool. So I told him the story, and I showed him the pictures, and he was like, oh wow. He's like, damn, okay. He's like, mijo, you're gonna be a better dad, a better father than I could have ever hoped to be. I was like, you're gonna be great, right? He's like, I have the highest hopes for you. I have the highest expectations. Like, I know you're gonna be great. You're gonna be a great father, right? And I was breaking down, and he cracked open 2 beers for us, and I told him, as I forgot to mention, that as soon as I found out that I had this daughter, I decided that I needed to cut out anything and everything that would be a distraction or a hindrance to me being the best version of myself. So I cut out alcohol. I didn't even bother, pursuing any sort of substance use, right? Because I was like, I need to be better. And I told myself that those were used to celebrate stuff, and I didn't have anything to celebrate at the moment because I hadn't even held my daughter yet. So I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to have a drink until I land the job that I want, or I get to hold my daughter first. I was like, whichever comes first. Either I land the job that I've been chasing, and that I know it's going to be setting me up for the future, or I get to meet my daughter. I was like, whichever one comes first. I was like, I will have a celebratory drink, whichever day of those come, right, first. So I was telling them this. I was like, yeah, I know I've been telling my family, because they've seen me not drink at social events or family gatherings. And I told them, essentially that, I'm not drinking because I want to wait till I land this job, right? Not telling them, obviously, that I was waiting really to meet my daughter first before I felt like I had something to celebrate, right? Because that's how I viewed it. I was like, I'm not going to drink until I have something to celebrate. And he was like, no. He's like, father to father. He's like, you're going to have a beer with me. And I was like, okay. I was like, fine. And yeah, so that was about mid-October. I had really hoped that by then, right, it had been a month from now since I found out. I really had hoped by then I would have met her. I would have met my daughter. I would have, been in a better place with my ex. And, I really did feel like I was making progress there. We were texting, having, friendly banter. We were clowning. We were laughing together. Like, we were seeing each other regularly. And I seriously thought that, we were getting to a good place again. And then, a couple weeks go by. She pulls up to my mom's house while I'm there. And, at this point, my mom had already messaged her saying, hey, mother to mother, I want to take you out to brunch. I want to, talk to you, whatever. And my ex was like, oh, I don't know. Like, we'll have to see with my schedule because I work so often, this and that. And, my ex even asked me, one day if I would go with them, just be there, just so it wouldn't be so awkward. I was like, yeah, no, I would love to go. I know my mom only invited, you, but, I'll talk to her and, we'll figure it out. When she pulls up to my mom's, I was like, do you want to say hi? This and that. And she was like, yeah, sure. Why not? And so I called my mom, right? Because I still haven't told the rest of my siblings. However, my mom was outside, and I called her over because I was about to leave as well. I was like, hey, I have someone that wants to. I was like, here, I need to come show you something. And so she comes out, and she sees my ex, and my mom gets excited. She gives her a hug, and and I really feel like I felt afterwards that I should have stayed there for the conversation, but my mom kind of was like, all right, can you give us some privacy? And I was like, yeah, no, sure, of course. I was like, I'll be right back then. I'll go get some water and give you guys a few minutes. So I get water, I come back, and I kind of walk up on them. I was like, hey, how's it going, this and that. My ex had actually texted me while I was getting water saying, hey, can you come back? And then I was like, okay, sure, why not? So I come back, and then my mom kind of gives me a look. She's like, can you give us, a little bit more time? I was like, okay, fine. I was like, I'll give you guys 60 more seconds to talk. All right. So I walk away, and I kind of count down in my head. And when I walk back, I see that my mom is in tears. I see that my ex has a look on her face, like she's hurt. And I was like, what happened? I was like, are you guys okay? Like, what's wrong? And they're like, and then my mom's like, no, we were just talking, and, she's like, she has to go now. I was like, okay. And then, so my mom goes inside the house, and I walk my ex to her car, and I was like, what happened? Like, what did she say? This and that. And my ex was saying how my mom, indirectly said that she was being selfish, by keeping my daughter from me, and keeping, my mom's granddaughter from her, that she was being selfish. And she didn't directly say that. She didn't say it in those exact words, but, that's how my ex interpreted it, saying how my mom said it, phrased it, whatever. And, my ex looked really hurt, and I felt furious. I was like, what did my mom say? I was like, I was so upset with my mom, and, thinking that she set me back in my progress with her. And, that wasn't right of me to feel that way towards my mom, right? Because she was doing what she thought was best. She has her own feelings in this as well. But my mom also doesn't know how to, I guess, communicate with my ex. She doesn't know exactly what my ex responds to, and, in terms of, communication. And I know how my mom gets also when she gets emotional. So I kind of put two and two together. I was like, okay, my mom kind of came on a little bit too strong. She might have been a little bit overboard, and my ex didn't know how to respond. And she probably just stood there staring at my mom. Like, that's kind of the reaction that we get. So I went back, and I almost lost it on my mom, telling her, like, what did you say? Why did you bring that up? Like, why? It's like, my ex is leaving, freaking, she's upset, this and that. I was like, you don't know how to talk to her. Like, you probably went overboard. I was like, she just wanted to say hi. And, I was losing it on my mom, and I was like, fuck. I was like, luckily my sister was there, right? The one that knows. And she was like, hey, look, this is a first for all of us. And my mom was like, yes, I don't know how to handle the situation. I was like, this is all new. This is all foreign territory. It was like, we're doing the best that we can. I know you're doing the best that you can. She's like, I'm sorry if I upset her. It was like, it wasn't my intentions. And, I was texting my ex. I was like, hey, my mom's sorry. I know how she can be. I'm sorry I wasn't there to mediate the conversation. And she was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. This and that. But I could feel it. I could feel it through the text that, my ex was upset. And I felt like that I lost progress, that I took like 10 steps backwards. And so after that, it took a couple days, but, I felt like things were going back to normal again, or, at least getting better. And, my ex was talking to me more. I was getting her gifts. she would send me pictures of her, wearing the gifts, saying thank you. She would send me pictures of the baby stuff that I got her, saying, oh, thank you for this, onesie, I'm going to put it on her today. She's going to look so cute, this and that. And I was like, oh, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad, I felt like of use. I felt useful to her. And that's all I wanted, right? It felt a relief hearing her say thank you to me for this stuff. So early November comes around, and I kind of got it in my head saying, hey, I've given her so much money. I've been patient for so long, and I feel like we're in a good place to have this conversation. So I brought it up again. I was like, hey, I would like to see her. I was like, I feel like it, I've waited long enough, and, I feel like I've given enough to at least meet my daughter. And she hits me with the, how I feel about that. She hits me with the, if you want what's best for her. I was like, I don't think you're what's best for her. And I was like, okay. I was like, that hurts, but I'll try to be more patient. I'm sorry I brought it up. Still, giving her the benefit of the doubt, giving my ex the benefit of the doubt. I was like, hey, you're her mother. I was like, you've been there the entire time. Like, you've done all this, on your own, thinking that she's been doing it on her own. Because when I asked about, where this guy went that I saw her with on Instagram, she said, oh, he didn't want to raise someone else's child. And I was like, okay, I don't blame him. But, early November comes around, and she asked me if, out of the blue, I think it was like 2 days, she went without texting me. She's like, hey, do you have tools? I want to do an oil change on my car. I was like, okay, no worries. I was like, I'll go do it for you. And, it was in the morning, and I was going to meet her up in a parking lot where she worked. And I was going to do the oil change for her while she was, handling whatever it is that she needed to handle. Right. But for her work was she just needed to be on a voice call. So she was like, okay, I'll be on this voice call. You can work on the car. Like, it's fine. No issues. Like, I can be in the parking lot. It's okay. I was like, okay, cool. Perfect. So I'm working on her car, and I took this opportunity to essentially, I would say, I took advantage of the fact that she couldn't just drive away because I had her car propped up. And I needed to ask her questions. I was like, hey, because that same morning before I even met up with her, I was scrolling through Instagram, and I thought for whatever reason that I wanted to look up this guy's Instagram account again, right? Because before I had saw that I couldn't find it for a while, and I had given up on it. I had forgotten about it. Up until that morning, to where I felt like I needed, just curiosity. Curiosity drove me to look for this guy's account again, and sure enough, it was public, and I still saw posts of them together. However, the last one was from August 1st, and I almost threw up on the drive over there to see her, but, I felt like I needed to keep my composure, and I needed to keep a level head because I didn't know what was going on. I don't know the full story because, she hasn't told me. She hasn't opened up. She hasn't told me anything. But she had reassured me that, there wasn't anyone, and that, he wasn't interested in raising someone else's kid and whatnot. And so I was like, okay. I need to bounce back a little bit prior to that too. Was, I would say, maybe about 3 weeks or so, 3-4 weeks after I had been back and we had been talking. I brought it up saying, hey, if there's anyone, like, if you're pursuing someone else, if you're trying with someone else, I don't want to get in the way with that. I was like, if that's what's making you happy, then, I'm happy for you. But, I'm here to help, and I'm not going anywhere. I was like, how I feel about you and what I want with you. I was like, that's, as long as you know that. And she kept reassuring me every time I brought it up. Like, no, there's no one. There was an instance where I saw her wearing a ring, and she had a long sleeve that day. And when I walked up closer, I still saw the ring, but she had covered it with her sleeve. So that's when I asked her again. I was like, hey, if there's anyone, like, please, just be honest. Just tell me. I was like, I already went through the heartbreak of, seeing you with someone else. So it's fine, like, it still hurt to see it, in person, but, at the time, I felt like, hey, I just want to be happy for you. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you're happy. And again, she reassured me. She's like, no, this ring is mine. I'm like, I just bought it. I was like, okay, so then, why try to hide it? And she was like, I don't know. I was like, well, you never wear it when you're around me. I was like, you just wear it right now that I see that you're driving away. I was like, so like, what's the deal? It's like, what's going on? And she was like, no, it's like, it's just mine. Like, I just bought it. I was like, okay. I let that sit. I let that be. I was like, okay, maybe I'm bugging her, asking her so much about, if she's still with someone. But when I saw that account, still active and whatnot, I brought it up. I was like, hey, this does not look like someone who doesn't want to be in your life. And she hits me with well, that's on him. Like, I have no control over that account. And I was like taken aback because, I should have been seeing the signs. Every time I find out anything about her, she gets very defensive. She asked me, how did I learn that? Or when did I find that out? Like, how do I know things about her? How do I know things about, like, just anything that she does? Because, she was very protective. She was very secretive. And, I just thought that she was hurt and she didn't want to trust me, which, that's what I thought it boiled down to. It was like, she just didn't want to trust me. She didn't want to give me that trust again, for fear of me hurting her. So that's what I thought it was, the entire time, right? The entire time that I came back, like, I just thought she was being secretive because, she didn't want to get hurt by me. But yeah, I probably should have noticed the signs that, every time I found out anything about her, whether it is like where she worked or like where she lived, or, finding this Instagram account about this guy and showing her, the posts and stuff, like, hey, this doesn't look like someone that doesn't want to be with you. When I asked about, her getting his name tatted on her, she said, oh, it's not there anymore. And, she even told me that she got my name tatted on her back. I was like, okay, that's sweet. Me thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, it's more like, you want to leave me in the past. That's why you got it on her back, right? That's what I thought about that. But when I asked about, the matching tattoos that she got with him, she said, no, I don't have a matching tattoo with him. Like, I just got, this for myself. Like, I designed it myself. I was like, okay. So when I brought it up and I showed her the proof, on the Instagram, she was like, why are you asking questions you already know the answer to? And I was like, because I want to hear it from you. I was like, you told me that there was no one, and you told me that, that he didn't want to be there for you, to help raise someone else's kid. And she was like, okay, well, then he cheated on me. It was like, why he's not here? You know why? And I was like, why? It's just like, because he cheated on me with his ex. And, I was like, okay. I was like, that's very shitty, but, that kind of, I still can't really hold that against them. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, it's, she was like, she was very convincing in her stories, right? So I had no reason to doubt that, she was lying to me. I knew she was keeping stuff from me, but never once did I think that she was lying to me. Until 2 weeks ago, where she went almost 5 days. She went 5 days without talking to me. And when I called her after Thanksgiving, I called her and she immediately was, what do you want? And I was like, hey, I wanted to make sure you were okay. I was thinking the worst. I was thinking you were hurt, or I was thinking, our daughter was sick or whatnot. Like, I thought my brain was just on hyperdrive, always, just hyper worrying, thinking that I'm not doing enough, I'm not giving her enough. And, that's my brain immediately went to, I can't eat, I can't sleep because I'm just so worried about them and thinking that, they need more from me and I can't give them more, or whatever the case may be. Right. And so she was like starting to ghost me. And then, my text went from blue to green, and I was like, what the heck is going on? I tried calling her more. They go straight to voicemail. And at this point, her birthday's coming up. So I had a box of gifts that I was ready to give her. And when I texted and it goes green again and it goes straight to voicemail, I'm just trying to give her this box of presents for her birthday. And, I'm getting no response. I messaged her friends, and, her best friend essentially said, leave her alone. She doesn't want to talk to you. And I was like, what's going on? I was like, did I do something wrong? And she was like, I don't want to get in the middle of it. And then I get this random text or a random number starts texting me saying, hey, you need to leave her alone. You need to move on. Like, you need to get over it. And I was like, get over what? I was like, what happened? I was like, I wasn't understanding. I was like, what changed? I was like, why is she being so cold? Why did she block me? Why is she being so distant? I didn't understand because, when I asked her the last time I spoke to her on the phone, I asked her what was wrong, like what changed, like if I did anything wrong. She said, no, nothing changed. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. She's like, I'm just busy. And I was like, okay, well, let me know when you're free. Like, if you're at work, I'll just drop it off. Like, I just want to give you these, these gifts that I got you. And she was like, no, and, I was in shock. I was like, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, hey, if your friend doesn't help me out and, I give it to her, I just want to give you these presents. I was like, I'm just going to have to leave them at your mom's, or I'm going to have to go to your mom's. And she, this random number was saying, don't do that. You're going to upset her. I was like, who is this? And the phone number essentially said her husband. And I was like, okay. I was like, so I tried calling the number immediately. I was like, hey, if a dude answers, then I know, there's someone else. I tried calling the number multiple times, no answer. I was like, okay. I was like, this is a little bit fishy. And the way that this person was texting me, I almost knew immediately that it was actually my ex texting me. And potential 747. Yeah, it's possible.
All right, we're back again.
So I'm reading these texts and I'm like, okay, no, this sounds exactly like how my ex would text. But they were being so hostile, saying, hey, you're going to upset her. Like, don't go to her mom's. Like, she doesn't want to see you. Like, get over it. And this number's texting me, back to her friend. She was like, I was like, how am I supposed to leave her alone if she's the mother of my child? Like, if she's the mother of my daughter, like, how do you expect me to leave her alone? And her friend was like, what are you talking about? Like, she doesn't have a kid. And at this point, I was like, okay, someone is lying to me. I was like, and when this new number, quote unquote, her husband was texting me, he was saying how you need to leave her alone. You need to stop bugging her. You need to stop harassing her. Like, you're being psychotic. And I was like, what is going on here? I was like, how am I being psychotic? I was like, I feel like this is a very normal reaction to, what I'm being presented here. And I said, hey, if she wants me out of her life, that's fine. Like, she just needs to tell me. I was like, but I can't just leave, I can't just leave my daughter. And, so they're like, what do you want then? I was like, I want the truth. I was like, I want her to look me in the eye and tell me the truth. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And I was like, well, I need answers. I was like, if she doesn't give me answers, then yeah, I'm going to have to go to her family. And they're like, yeah, no, don't do that. I was like, okay, well then, I was like, you're leaving me no choice. I was like, what? I was like, I'm going to have to look for the answers one way or another. I was like, you need to tell her that she needs to speak with me. She's like, no, she doesn't want to see you. Like, you give her anxiety and you're making her uncomfortable. I was like, where? Like, how? And so, granted, I can see why she would feel threatened because, I would, see her at work, or I would pull up, not give her really a heads up. But, I thought they were nice surprises. I would always bring food and, just walk her to her car. Like, and we would joke around, and that's why I thought it was okay. Like, she never once, later on she said, hey, you need to stop pulling up to my work or this and that, And I was like, okay, that's fair. That's fine. I understand. So I stopped, and then we had that interaction where I changed her oil and, I was asking her all these questions. And she was super defensive, and, she couldn't necessarily get away because I had her car jacked up still. So they were bringing that stuff up. They're like, you go to her work, you follow her, like you hold her hostage. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I was like, but there's like, she's so avoidant of my questions and I know nothing about her, so I'm sorry if I find it hard to understand like what's going on here. Like, what is she thinking? Like, what is she feeling? Like, I don't know anything. Like, I'm completely in the dark here. I was like, everything that I find out is because, I had to do serious research on, serious deep dive on freaking social media and trying to piece together anything that she told me. And I was like, okay. And so this number, right, her quote unquote husband, which, actually is her, right? Was like, okay. I was like, you can have a phone call. I was like, no. I was like, I need face to face. I was like, I'm not going to believe, her over the phone. I was like, she needs to be convincing. And eventually, she agrees, saying, okay, fine. If, you promise that after this, you'll leave her alone. And I was like, if she gives me 100% the truth and is completely honest and is convincing and leaves no room for doubt, then yeah, I was like, I'll leave her alone. And she was like, okay, well, we'll meet in 2 hours, right? At this spot, right? And I was like, okay, fine. So I take the time to kind of prepare, the questions that I'm going to ask, kind of, I go, I shower up, I make myself presentable. And, because I was also telling the number, I was like, hey, if you are who you say you are, like, you should come with her then. That's probably going to convince me that there's someone else that she's, with. And so, 2 hours later, I'm over here. I had written her a birthday card. I had packed up the box of presents. I had gotten her. And luckily, I had told my parents. I was like, hey, I'm meeting up with her. This is what's been happening. Do you have any questions that you think I might need to ask? And they're like, no, we trust you. Just make sure you're doing the responsible thing, and if you can. Record the conversation, or actually no, they didn't even mention that. I told them that I was going to record the conversation, right? And they're like, okay, that's a good idea, to protect yourself, if this does come down to a legal custody battle, like, you're going to need all the proof that you can get. And I was like, yeah, you're right. When I called my mom, she was like, hey, I'll leave work. I can be there in 25 minutes. And, at the time I still had about an hour before the meet time. So I told her, I was like, you know what, it's probably a good idea. She's like, yeah, you're going to need a witness in case, this guy does show up and things get heated for whatever reason. And like, you're going to need someone to say that, they saw the whole thing. And I was like, okay, thank you. You're right. Yeah. You can park and just watch from your car. And, that's what she did. When it came time to the meet, my ex rolls up alone. And she, she seemed like she wasn't wanting to be there, obviously. And she seemed like, she had better things to do than to clear this up. So I asked her, I was like, did like, what happened? Like, I was like, if you're honest with me right now, like, I'll leave you alone. It's fine. So I asked her straight up. I was like, is there a kid? Like, do I have a daughter? And she told me no. I was like, okay, can you prove that she doesn't exist? And she said, I can prove she's not mine. And I was like, how are you going to do that? And she pulls up, this other chick's Instagram account. And I see all the pictures that she had shown me, right? Since the first one that I saw, that 3-month picture back in September. The one that started this all, right? She had showed me that on this chick's Instagram, and she showed me, all the other pictures. I was like, she also gave me a picture of her and this baby very early on. And I had kept it in my wallet the entire time. Looking at it every day, thinking about, hey, this is what I'm working towards. This is what I'm, working myself to the bone. This is what I'm shelling. This is what I'm giving my all to, right? Is, to keep the smiles on her and on this baby, and, this is what I'm losing sleep over. This is what, I'm working so hard towards, this is what I'm hating my life for. I was like getting up, like taking the cold showers so I can wake up, like just doing whatever I can to be the best version of myself, to be the best, the best partner, the best father, the best dad. I was like, I told myself every fucking day that, I needed to get up and out of bed because, I needed to be that man. I needed to be that person. Right. And I needed to do everything I could to provide and to give, and, she essentially told me it was all a lie and it was all just to hurt me. And, when I asked her for proof, when I asked her to pull up her Instagram, because, I hadn't seen that in months, sure enough, I just saw pictures of her and this guy. And, it kind of hurt me that she even posted herself with, the gifts that I got her, the sweaters, the earrings. And, it broke me. And I was just so lost, in the moment, just trying to process it all. And she had no remorse in her voice. She was like, I don't know what you want me to say. What more do you want me to say? Like, I'm sorry. Like, okay. Like, listening back to the recording of me breaking down and just no regret, no remorse, any sort of hint of just humility or shame or anything. Just she had no remorse in her voice. She just wanted to leave there. She just wanted to leave me there. She was ready to just ghost me and expect me to just leave it after everything that I've given her, after emptying my bank account, after all the hours and time that I spent. And she expected me to be okay with that and just to move on, like without her answering anything. Even less, because when I asked to talk to her, and they just all they suggested was a phone call because I was gonna make her feel uncomfortable, and I said, that's really all I mean to her, like a phone call. And they responded with, you mean less, actually? So when she said, at the end of this conversation that she was sorry and like she has nothing more to say except she's sorry, I still don't believe that. Like, there's listening back to the recording of the conversation and, trying to have my questions answered, and her just being like, okay, and what? Like, those were literally her responses. Okay, and like, she was still playing the victim after lying to me and making me believe I had a daughter, and, putting in all this effort for her and just stringing me along and, causing way more damage than she could possibly imagine. And I was relieved when she told me the truth, because I did not want to have to take her to court. And, turns out I didn't have to, because there was no kid. Now the only reason I'd take her to court was, to get the money that I gave her back, right? Because I asked her, I was like, where the fuck did my $10,000 go that I gave you? And she said, oh, it went to rent. And I was like, to rent? I was like, is this guy not helping you pay rent? Like, what is this guy doing, right? If you needed $10,000 to pay for rent. And she, tried to give me some bullshit excuse like, oh, he pays for other things. I was like, you blew through $10,000 in 2 months on rent, and what is he paying for? Like, I know now that she, there's no way, like, there's no logical way that she feels bad about what she did, because she made a conscious choice every single day for the past over 2 months that she was going to keep lying to me and let me do the stuff that I was doing, and continue that lifestyle, like hating my life every single day because I felt like, I was a shitty father or a shitty person for what I did. And, whereas all my actions I've ever done for her was just that. It was for her. Because I thought it was what was best for her. And, all of her actions, from the beginning with the posts that were earlier in the year where she would hint at, baby stuff, she did that all just to spite me. And when I looked through her Instagram, she recreated photos with this guy that we took while we were together. And, in my head, I was like, is nothing of what we had sacred? Was like, I just, till now, like, this whole conversation, by the way, happened on Tuesday. So just a couple days ago. And it's her birthday now, and and I still hope she's enjoying it. Like, I still wish her nothing but the best, even after everything that she did. And I know what she did was shitty, but I still give her the benefit of the doubt. I still defend her, and I don't want to paint her as a monster, because I still empathize with her. And some people might fucking call it Stockholm syndrome, right? But I still think that she's just young, and she's hurt, and that's the reason she did what she did. And I just hope that she heals that part of her. And she brought me to my worst, but that brought out my best. And she showed me the kind of person that she is. And at the same time, she showed me the kind of person that I am. And in the fact that to the lengths that I will go for the people that I care about and for the things that I want, she showed me exactly how much I was willing to endure, and how much I was willing to, get up and put in that effort every single day. Even though it was all for naught, it was all for a lie, but she still showed me the kind of man that I am. And I don't regret, I don't regret any of it. Am I going to let the money thing slide? No. But, she showed me that what I'm capable of. And, to round this off, I'm just going to now show myself the same love and the same effort that I was showing her. And, I hope that she's honest with her current relationship, and for her sake, that, she trusts him enough and feels safe enough to open up about what she did and the kind of person that she is. And she's honest with what she needs to do in order to heal that part of her that felt that, she needed to hurt me. And I hope that she trusts him enough to open up about it. And I hope that, he does help her heal. And I hope that, they do end up happy, because there's no doubt in my mind that he doesn't know what she did. There's no way that, even after I asked if he knows what she did and everything that she did, and she told me yes. She even let it slip that this past meeting on Tuesday, I was like, does he even know that you're here meeting with me? And she's like, no, not this moment, not this second. I was like, does he know anything? She was like, she knows. He's like, he knows that I met up with you. I was like, what about the flirting? What about, the pretending there was a kid? Like, all this. I was like, there's no way he knows all of that. Like, what sane person would stay with someone like that, knowing what they're capable of, knowing that, they're just out here hurting people, She went as far as letting me get my family involved in this. Like, she helped me tell my mom there was a child. She helped me tell my mom she was a grandma. And, none of what she did was okay, but, I still try to justify it in my mind that this was all because, I broke her heart and I left her. And, I still partly feel responsible for, bringing this upon us. Right? But yeah, I mean, I know if I ever need a reminder of who I am and what I'm capable of, I just need to listen to that last conversation that we had together. And, having the past 2 days to sort of process it all, I just have, just a few things left to say to her and just to ask her. And after that, I'll be done with it and be able to finally be the man that, I was meant to be coming out. I have no stress, nothing holding me back from pursuing the life that I wanted to pursue. And, I just wish her the best. And I hope she does find peace in her life. And I hope one day we can go back or not go back, but one day, still be friends and eventually, see how far we've come in life. And I hope I get to see the incredible woman that I know she's capable of being, That's pretty much it. Back to you, Cesar. Thank you for letting me share my my story. And to all you guys listening, you definitely don't know what you're capable of until you're pushed to the limits. So don't ever sell yourself short, and don't ever tell yourself you're not worthy. Because even after what she did, I still think she's worthy of peace and love in her life. And, it's more so now me putting that same effort and that same mentality into myself. All right, that's it.
How do you feel now?
Honestly, I feel relieved.
Relieved because you know the truth?
I feel set free, and I'm thankful for her for, finally being honest. It sucks that it took this long, and, it sucks that it had to get to that point. But, I'm glad that she was honest with me, and I'm glad that, I was able to see who she was and what she did, and I'm glad for what she showed me that I'm capable of. And yeah, I still wish her the best, and she's always gonna have a piece of my heart, and I'm gonna need some time to heal from that. But I know now the kind of man that I am, and just how big of a heart that I have, and how much love I'm willing to give. And it sucks that it wasn't for the right person, but when that right person does come, it's gonna be amazing.
Well,
I know it was a bit of a long story, but I had a whole over a year's worth of background and then recent events to cover. So I know this is probably going to be one of your longer ones.
Hey, I don't mind. And
So
America
thank
doesn't
you.
mind either.
Thank you, listeners, if you've made it this far. Yeah, I just, I appreciate this opportunity. I'll probably listen to this and, just reflect on it more whenever it does get posted. But at the very least, I hope, it gives someone out there some inspiration to seek the answers and have that self-reflection, right? And, just tell yourself that you're worthy of so much more and capable of so much more than you can think of.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for sharing that story with us. I'm sure it'll help someone who's lost and kind of struggling to figure out what to do. And I guess we could call it an episode with that. Anything else you want to say, or have you said everything you got to say?
That's pretty much it. I have, this final conversation that I'll probably have with her, hopefully tomorrow. But after that, I am going to start my self-healing. And
how are you going to do that? How are you going to heal?
How am I going to heal? Well, for starters, I got rid of the pictures that she gave me. Like I said, I don't hate her. Am I angry? Am I hurt? Yes. But I know that I'm just going to use that as fuel, to just get ahead in life and to use it as motivation. And as far as like emotionally healing, it's just going to be a lot of self-reflection. It took a lot out of me this past year to try and enjoy anything. So I need to work back into finding out, what I like to do and just, just enjoying life for what it is.
Well, I hope you find success in that journey. All right, America. We will be ending it right there. Good evening. Please join us for this next episode. I'm sure it's going to be Liana again. But all right. Good evening, America.